Hello, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude at BeyondMystic, and welcome to this very special Deep Woo-Woo episode. Today, we are decoding the 144,000 in Revelation. With me today are my guests, Indigo Angel. You can find her here on YouTube and also on her website at indigoangel222.com. Indigo, welcome back.
Hi, JC. Hi, Julie. Thank you for having me back for another Galactic download. I look forward to diving in with you guys today.
Excited to have you. And of course, you can find my friend here, Julie from Maison-Jupiter, here on YouTube and also on the web at maisonjupiter.com. Julie, welcome back to the show.
Hi, JC. Hi, Indy. Super happy to be there with you today. I feel like it's going to be a very different kind of conversation for me, but also super important.
Well, on that note, I'm excited to have this conversation with you guys as well. I've been thinking about this 144, and I've been seeing these numbers also for quite some time. And I'm sure a lot of you, the audience members, have also been seeing this numerology in your lives, maybe for a number of years yet now, actually. So we're going to go into the decode of what this perhaps mean. We're going to talk about the religious components of it. We're going to also talk about maybe the more new age interpretation of all of this. And within that, we're going to even put in some astrology to back it all up. So thank you everyone for joining us here today on this live interactive show. I will be putting your comments up on the screen as we go. And if we have time, perhaps at the later part of the show, we will also be taking your questions. Now, Indigo, let's start with you. How do you want to develop the subject matter today? Where do you want to start? Perhaps you and I were talking about this before the show. We can get into this whole idea of 222. As you know, Joe, David, and I, and Woo Woo Dude have been following the 222, also Julie, in the last couple of months here on our show. How does that pertain for you to this 144,000 here in Revelation?
Well, you know, right now the 222 codex is astrologically and numerologically very significant because it's bringing forth an upgraded grid template. You know how I come from everything according to the planetary grids and the light matrices that are running. So therefore, we're kind of going into a white to double diamond ray, pure source light frequency that's really activating a global collective higher humanitarian activation. Yeah, the astrological and the numerological alignments right now are very significant.
Okay, very good. And talk about how this Pluto return, we'll get into some slides here also, how that ties into the J seals, the shadow clearing, and the dove grid that you and I were talking about in the last couple of shows.
Right. So, you know, as we get these upgrades and as we start to receive this light matrice, especially with the 222 codes, because we have a great stellar activation portal coming through February 22nd, 2022. This is essentially going to be alleviating a lot of the shadow off of the United States, right? Because we're having that Pluto return. I believe it kicks off on that date. Is that correct, Julie?
It's exact on the 20th, but on the 22nd, it's going to be still in full force.
Okay. Yeah. So around this time, it's going to be going through a great shadow clearing. And right now we're activating with the dove grid. And what we actually have activating is we have 3 main light grid templates running through the 222 codes. So this is awakening those 144,000 templates that are running biologically and planetarily in the next wave of the activation and ascension cycles. So it's running the 4 pillars of man, which is the Lemurian templates. It's running the dove grid, which is the freedom, peace codes, and liberation of man. That is the building of the light cities. So this is basically the prophecy and the mission of the 144. And then we also have coming online, which is the Swan grid, which is representative of the new earth and a unification of healed bloodlines. That's really eradicating all of the PDS, which is the patriarchal demon seeds, off of that north 30-degree horizontal ley line. And so this is really activating the 144,000 right now, the 144,000 mission, and those who feel that they are encoded to the 12 tribal seedings and the 12 tribal bloodlines, essentially.
Okay, you're going a little bit fast here. Let me break it down for you, the audience here. If we go back to the video you produced yesterday, Indigo, on your YouTube channel here, the title, I'm just going to zoom in on that for the audience here, the Cygnus Supernova, 3 Days of Light. Can you explain this? Of course, this is a 1 hour show. People can go and watch that show here, but can you explain briefly what you mean by that, where that is coming from, who perhaps was channeling this information also, and how do you feel this pertains to perhaps the time we are heading into right now? As a divine feminine yourself, how do you connect with this information?
Well, there's just so much that I really talked about in that update. As you know, I've spent a lot of time focusing on the Dove grid, which was my update prior to that. In that grid update, I'm talking about the levels of the expansion of the Dove prophecy, which originates in Australia. The ancient Dove grid template originates from the lands of Australia, but a great hijacking had taken place and basically displaced that light matrix in North America underneath the J seals, or the selenite pylon vortices that basically hijack that light system. Okay, so through the expansion of the Dove, we're going to, enter into the Swan. The Swan is a higher emanation of the form of the Dove light matrix, which is a representation of the clearing and the freedom of that Dove grid released, basically, in its total planetary expansion. Why the Swan grid is really coming online right now is because there's actually a Cygnus supernova. So, not a lot of people are kind of talking about this right now. And when you said highlight who's talking about it, that would be Alex Collier. Alex Collier is actually talking a lot about this. What it is so Cygnus has been a very busy star system. There have been several dynamic star explosions, one that happened about 15,000 years ago and one from the 1600s. And then another one that's said to actually impact in Alpha Cygnus in 2022. That's going to be visible for us to see with the naked eye for up to 6 months after its implosion. Now, what's supposed to be happening is, because there's 2,600 years of light in between us and Cygnus, is that from those implosions in the 1600s and even before that, we're supposed to be actually integrating those photonic gamma rays here in the Earth. And we were supposed to be receiving those between January 2022 to March 2022. And that the actual implosion of that supernova wave of those two stars that are actually supposed to collide, a new collision in the Cygnus system, we may actually see that take place by July 2022. Now, as we integrate that photonic light energy into the Earth's triplicity solar system, which is the grand central sun, to our solar sun, to the Earth's inner core sun matrix system, which actually has a lot to do with how the light fields activate within the 144,000, because it is a triplicity solar activation within one's light body field. Ultimately, that runs 48 DNA strands times 3, which would equal the 144,000 harmonics that activate in one's body. Essentially, if we receive these transmissions, these stellar photonic light gamma rays from the Cygnus system, essentially we will potentially have something similar to what is the solar flash, or the great solar flash event. But it would be, the predictions have been that we would experience actually 3 days of consecutive light where there is no nighttime. So there is absolutely there is no turning off. So in that time, that actually acts as a Genesis event. So in Genesis, there was 7 days of light. All of the work was done in 6 days, but everything that was done in the first 3 days on this earth, in terms of everything that was created, was done in the first 3 days. So if we have 3 consecutive days of light, I mean, you can imagine the possibilities of what could potentially be happening here if we have something like that.
Well, on top of the Genesis effect, what can you say also, maybe intuitively, or perhaps what Alex Collier and other channelers are talking about, could happen in these 3 days of light as it pertains to maybe burning off some of the negative AI, some of these old programs, these old matrices overlay? Is that part also of that process, perhaps of keeping that light formation for 3 days. And I love that it's 3 days also. And I love the word triplicity. I usually use the triune, but from, of course, the galactic central sun, our actual sun, and the internal core. How do you see that happening, that 3 days of light? What else could it possibly do on top of what I've just mentioned? Maybe also awakening some dormant DNA and perhaps that third strand.
Yeah, so I can just tell you what I see could potentially be happening. I think that it's going to be an awakening of the 144,000 event, that it will bring on 24 to 48 strands of the DNA. It will expand and release the hijacking off of the dove light grid matrices. It will bring forth the swan grid light matrices. It will reconstruct the inner Earth sun into an encased liquid diamond light that will basically come up from inner Earth, and it's going to bring light to all the deepest, darkest spaces on the Earth. So ultimately, that is going to be clearing out all of the alien hybridization traumas, everything intergenerationally, culturally, across the events from the motherlands of Mu. It would clear these deep traumas that we basically hold by expanding the wings. So if you want to pull up the swan grid template that I designed, it helps me explain it, helps me define it.
Okay.
Essentially, so the wings of the swan, as they expand, as you have that diamond core there on the back of the swan, you can even zoom into it if you want to, but there's a diamond back that expands, that kind of represents that diamond light expanding. Well, that light will trek across all the deepest canyons and all the greatest trenches in the Earth, going from the Grand Canyon in Arizona all the way to the Mariana Trench, which is where the deepest darkness is actually held in the Earth's grids. That's also held simultaneously in parallel to our own biology, right? Clearing those dark spaces from within us to basically clear and rehabilitate all of the, suffering that has been, suppressing and oppressing spirituality, humanity, and been the representation of the fall of man. And so, yes, there's going to be a lot that's going to happen.
Okay, hold on also, because I have a question here from the audience. I don't want to go too fast and lose anybody. 3D is asking, hey, please explain the galactic central sun. So let me bring something up on the screen for you guys here. This is just one image that I'm finding, and also explain how this perhaps has something to do with the Yugas, or the cycles of the Yugas. So let me bring up a screen here. There you go. So Indigo, galactic central sun. What do you mean by that? How can you share that with the audience?
So it's basically like the metagalactic core, and then we have our solar sun, and then we have the Earth's inner sun, which creates the triplicity, or like the divine marriage of that triunal solar energy, because it represents like the solar king, the solar mother, and then the solar child, ultimately. And that's a part of that activation of the 144,000 that is coming online, basically. So yeah, it comes through the cosmic gamma waves, basically the radial waves, through the galactic stellar activations that are coming in alignment here with the Earth cycles.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And if we follow the Yugas also, this is not a good representation, but it's more an elliptical kind of form, where the our sun goes in an elliptical fashion around the galactic central sun. You can see it in the other picture. But essentially, as we get closer and closer to the galactic central sun, us as humans receive higher and higher frequencies, higher and higher light bodies, more intelligence, and all that. And conversely, as we come back in the elliptical away from the sun, we go back into what is known as the dark ages. And you can follow that here in these particular Yugas. We can do a whole show on that, but hopefully that answers the question on the screen. Go ahead.
Speaking of the Yugas, I've kind of been seeing things in terms of the precession cycles as well. So what I think is kind of happening in terms of the 144,000 holding those indigo templates, or those indigo records that are according to tribal seedings. Biblically, they're according to the tribes of Israel, but according to the New Age higher consciousness community, it's more towards particular grail lines that represent those seedings, like the Magi grail lines, the Melchizedek grail lines, the actual Essene grail lines, the Mary Magdalene grail lines. those bloodlines are essentially represent that total activation within that.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. Fascinating. Before we go a little bit further, let's go back into the astrology here of the 222s. So let me bring up Julie up on the screen. Julie, you and I have been covering this, I believe now since December in our first Astro Woo finance report. We had shared with the audience how this particular date was very important, not just for the United States here in terms of this Pluto return, but how that could affect worldwide our finances and ultimately our lead into this new world of spirituality and moving away from this materiality. So let me bring up the first slide here for February 20th, 2022. Share this with the audience here who might not have seen this yet. Oh, Julie, you're muted. Hold on. There you go. Julie, go ahead. Sorry.
Thanks. Before I talk about the 222, also, it was very interesting what Indy said about this year and about the 222, because in astrology in 2021, so last year, the most important event of last year was the square between Saturn and Uranus that happened 3 times. So, and we're going to have it again this year. So we're having it right now. It's in orb. And it's going to happen one last time. It's not going to be exact, but during the fall of 2022, we're going to see, again, this Saturn-Uranus square play out a little bit more, which is basically the old matrix of control, and Uranus, us trying to move towards our collective evolution and break free from the matrix, the old matrix of control. So that was the aspect that we had last year. And I saw 222 as the year that we break free from this matrix of control. So it ties in with what Indy was saying about this 222 portal. So, and also I feel like this Pluto return that's going to be exact on the 20th of February, but keep in mind that Pluto is a very slow moving planet, so it's going to be in orb for the whole year of 2022. So I feel like it's going to be a maybe like an explosive starting point of this breaking free 222 portal. So it's going to happen, I think, through the financial system, because the United States have their natal Pluto in their 2nd house. So Pluto is also a financial planet. The 2nd house is the house of finances. So it did a complete revolution around the zodiac to come back to its original position when the US had their Declaration of Independence in 1776. So this is why we call this Pluto return. So I think this breaking free from the old matrix of control is going to happen mainly through the financial system, because it's keeping us in chains, so to say. And Pluto, a Pluto return talks about a death and rebirth of the economy, death and rebirth of a currency. And also, I was told in 1776, near the U.S. Declaration of Independence, the U.S. had issued a new currency, which was the continental dollar. And very close to that period also, it crashed down because there was this need to print even more money, issue more money. So the same pattern is kind of happening again with the hyperinflation and then death of the currency. So that's one of the things we're seeing right now. But it goes further than just the financial system, because it also ties in with what's going to happen in the whole world, because we're all linked to this financial system and the US dollar also.
Okay, very good. I'm still on the first chart here. Is there more on the second chart that I'm missing here, Julie, that you want to elaborate for the audience?
Yeah, and another interesting alignment that I saw during this US Pluto return. Of course, we could talk about it for a long time. There's a lot to say, but at the same time, the US are having their Neptune opposition at the same time as their US Pluto return. So Neptune talks about dissolution. Also, it's the planet of illusions, of media, but also the, I would say, like the highest expression of Neptune would be the connection with the divine. So it pretty much talks about us letting go of the old and reaching for higher frequencies, but on a 3D level, because because like this higher expression, let's say it's like the 5D explanation of Neptune would be connecting with the divine, but on a 3D level, it asks us to let go materially of what we have. So it's a big letting go energy, also lifting of the veil. Neptune talks about illusions. It talks about the media, because it is linked with the illusions, the movies. So we're going to see, I think, a big change of narrative in the media, but also I think a big lifting of the veil as to what the general public was thinking about what happened in the last years, what happened with the 2020 crisis, but also everything that is linked with ET, spiritual energies is going to be a lot more accessible to the main public, I think.
Okay, very good. Indigo, is there anything else you want to add on the Pluto return, how it relates to the last two slides?
Yeah, she's just right on with the marking the anniversary of the 1776. So that shadow clearing release, to me, that represents going back to potential alleviation of what's hijacking the light right now. And so we'll continue to see more of that as well. And then also, did you mention on the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction in April? Did you just mention that?
No, but I will, because that's a very interesting alignment with what we're going to talk about today. Yeah, on April 12 of this year, 2022, we're going to have Neptune and Jupiter conjunct. So from our point of view on Earth, we're going to see them collide, so to say. So, and they're going to be meeting in the sign of Pisces, and that happens once every 13 years. Neptune talks about higher frequency, connecting with the divine, higher densities, lifting of the veil, illusions. And Jupiter talks about our need to believe in something greater than us. It talks about faith. And Jupiter is also linked to truth, like the real truth, not the truth that we're told here on Earth. So when those two planets are in a conjunction, as what we're going to have on the 12th of April, I think it's going to be a very interesting alignment for spirituality, for also our connection with our star families. We could maybe see more mainstream disclosure about ETs, lifting of the veil as to our true contracts with the ETs, our connection with them. And Pisces also is the sign of higher densities, other dimension, connecting with source, connecting with the divine. So it's a super good aspect. All the astrologers are really excited about it. And I think on a energetic level, it's going to really usher in into this new energy that you were talking about, Indy.
Oh, very good. Eric says, great perspectives. And somebody else says, sounds fantastic. Bring it on. Yes, bring it on. And Ocean Odell says, yeah, very exciting. Before we get into who, because you just mentioned star families here, Julie, so that'll connect maybe to the 144,000 here in a bit, because we're going to get into that conversation. There's quite a few questions. Well, who are these 144 and what is their mission? So we'll get into that. Before we do, I wanted to bring Indigo back on the line also, because she was talking about how this also could pertain to the Freedom Convoy globally, the liberation of the Sophionic energies. So go back to the Dove Grid here and also bring in Winnipeg, why Winnipeg is important in all of this. And I'm going to bring up some visuals also for the Winnipeg legislature. Go ahead, Indy.
Yeah, so if you want to bring the Dove Grid back up, so everything that Julie was just saying, that's going to be clearing in the financial system and also the political systems and structures as well. Because if you look back at the Dove Grid, so that would be the other one that we have.
Sorry about that. Here you go.
Yeah, that's okay. What's going on in the grids and in terms of what's happening in the Earth light matrices, right? So that central line that you see that is going down the center of the dove, Well, for one, that's really important. At the center line of that, that's where the Parliament building of Winnipeg actually lies, is right on that central line. And with having all of the Freedom Convoy going on, what we're having is guardian sweeps. So guardian sweeps of light that are going from the west side of Canada all the way across the flanks of the wings to the east side of Canada, right? So it's this sweeping of light, and that's actually following the prophecy of this living light grid and how it's supposed to come into fruition. But in the central point of this light grid running through Winnipeg, this is important because this light encoding is basically removing the demonic energy off of the Masonic symbolism, off of the Parliament buildings, removing the Masonic templating. And the Winnipeg Parliament building holds what is called the Pool of the Black Star. And it's so inside the building, it's actually like a black granite floor under a copper roof. And it's basically like an accumulative pit of rot of energy that is fed from the banking institutions. It's fed from the BlackRock, from the Vanguard, and it's capped with that pharaonic sexualized energy because, one way that they do that and they sexualize the grids with that pharaonic energy is with the obelisks. And so what they're also keeping there, after I dived into more research extensively, is they're actually keeping Medusa's head there in that Parliament building. They have an actual statue of this, which is really interesting because this is also what they hold underneath the Vatican, in what I call their deep layers of their vaulted pain and suffering, right? They keep trying to suppress this feminine energy. They keep trying to suppress the Sophionic energy. And as we come into these alignments, the 222 codes, the Pluto return, the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction, all of these things, this energy is going to be being more released because this is the prophecy and the level of the expansion of the dove, what will happen. The Sophionic codes will essentially be released. So Medusa's energy needs to be released, which is ultimately them trying to hold the Virgin Mary's energy captive. So the feminine demonization, the Black Madonna, the Lilith, they're trying to keep that energy at bay. But the 222 codes coming through, these are pivotal markers and breakthroughs of these prophecies, freeing Medusa, freeing the Virgin Mary, freeing the divine feminine lineages of the Fleur-de-Lis as well, the Mary Magdalene bloodlines. And all of this really through ley lines, and all of this is encoded back to those Isis temples in France. So this is also an Isis awakening as well. This is all the processes of the expansion of the white ray, of the unification of bloodlines, stripping that demonic symbolism off of these buildings, that will lead through other particular ley lines, following down into the United States, down into Washington, D.C., through the Devil's Tower, down through Washington, D.C. There's actually a very particular ley line that runs through there that will run across the Atlantic to Azores, Spain, which ultimately gets its way back to the Vatican. So freeing up more of the divine feminine energies and blockages in the grids. And so, yeah.
Okay, so folks, you might want to rewind that for 2 minutes and listen to that again. Let me bring just some of the imagery back. I'm very familiar with most of the legislatures around Canada. I've been to each and every one of them. And I can tell you the energy that comes through here is absolutely, I guess, demonic, for lack of a better term. This is the rotunda, and you can look down here to see this particular room. And at the bottom, we see the 8-pointed star there. And what Indigo was talking about here, of course, the Medusa's head here with the snake. So what are your first reactions to this? Have you heard this for the first time, Julie? And what can you share with the audience members here in relation to these imagery?
Well, I thought it was so interesting because also when JC, you were in Ottawa reporting from Parliament Hill, I was with Janine, and we were pulling cards according to this trucker convoy. And what we got is that we had this big divine feminine energy coming up to help the convoy and this energy of liberation. And every time we pulled cards, like the divine feminine cards kept coming back. So I was like, wow, like I didn't see it as a connection to this divine feminine liberation, so to say, but like it makes so much sense what you were saying, Indy. And
Wow.
also another thing I thought about when you were talking, in astrology, starting in January 18, we had the lunar nodes change axis. So they moved from Gemini, Sagittarius to the financial axis, which is Scorpio and Taurus. And we're now more in the south node activation, which is in Scorpio. So meaning that before we can move towards our evolution with the north node in Taurus, we first have to shed light on the dark stuff, on the dark scorpionic stuff. So meaning like all the trafficking, all the hidden things. It also means hidden financials, hidden power plays. How they grab the power away from the people. So everything needs to come out in the open. We have to shed a light first on the dark stuff so it can be purged out. So Scorpio means like purging out everything that's being hidden. So then we can move forward with the North Node energy in Taurus. So our evolution. So North Node in Taurus talks about a lot of connection with Gaia. Taurus is linked with Mother Earth energy. So bringing back this divine feminine also. So I feel like it was very relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. Truth Warrior says, thank you, ladies and JC. I am absolutely blown away. Amazing show. I know there's a lot of information. And Debbie says, yes, wow, this is amazing. JC, the ladies are incredibly smart. Yes, incredible and smart. I do absolutely agree. Let's touch on this one more time here. I did a decode with Janine, and a bunch of you were talking about Janine just now on this particular place and what happens here. Difficult subject to broach here on YouTube. This was on one of our pay-per-views. So if you are interested in seeing perhaps even more information to back up the conversation here, Janine and I did quite a big deep dive on this maybe 6 or 7 months ago on the pay-per-view. I think it could have been episode 6 or 7. So do go check that out. Okay, so let's get into the 144,000 here. Let's get to the first question. A lot of people are asking in the chat, well, who are these people? Now we have maybe 3 different interpretations. Let's start with the first one, Indigo. From the religious standpoint, how would you describe who those 144,000 in Revelations are?
Well, biblically speaking, the 144,000 can be found in the book of Revelations. I do believe they are in the chapter 7, chapter 14, chapter 20. They're basically protected servants of God in Revelation to the tribes of the sons of Israel. So there's 12,000 of them that come from each tribe. There's 12 tribes: the tribe of Judah, the tribe of Reuben, the tribe of Gad, the tribe of Asher, the tribe of Naphtali, the tribe of Manasseh, the tribe of Simeon, the tribe of Levi, the tribe of Issachar, the tribe of Zebulun, the tribe of Joseph, and the tribe of Benjamin. So that would make 144,000. They are basically, according to the Bible, they're all sealed, which means they have the protection of God. And they're kept safe from divine judgment, from the wrath of the Antichrist. And their mission is post-rapture, and they are the ones who proclaim the light during the tribulation. They were all to have been gathered on Mount Zion in Israel with the Lamb. So if you see a lot of lamb symbolism, that can represent the coming of the 144,000. They all have their father's name written across their forehead, and they all are able to sing songs that will actually activate the 4 living creatures, which is interesting because there's an actual template that runs for that in the Earth grid, according to the Lemurian system. So it kind of actually gives clues to how far back the 144,000 energy actually goes back to. I do personally feel that the 144,000 concept was hijacked by the biblical teachings. Essentially, in the Bible, they like to say that they're all virgins, that they carry no sin, and they embrace full purity, which it's true that the 144,000 do embrace purity. But I do see it a little bit differently in terms of, I guess, the higher consciousness community, that it ultimately may truly represent activations of ascension within you, and that everybody that feels that they have this call, or they have the ability to come online to this particular light matrix within them, can potentially attain this cycle or this mission, being that the 144,000 would come through 4 different sets of cycles, that there would be potentially those that are in initiatory phases, embodiment phases, that are in walking in mission, and then those who are actually in graduation phases of the 144,000. The confusion of the 144,000 came through the false doctrine of the Jehovah Anunnaki. They're the ones that claim that the 144,000 is an actual limitation to the number of people who will activate to that or reign with the Christ in heaven, and spend eternity with God, which it's just simply not true. The activation of the 144,000 chromosomes is really about the 144 DNA strands, the 144 harmonics, and the 144 pointed star Merkaba that one can expand into as their DNA structures actually collapse down, restructure, and form new geometric structures within their light body field.
Wow.
Yes, wow, indeed. And okay, so let's move into the New Age interpretation now of perhaps what their role is to be. We maybe recap what their role is supposed to be here in the religious context, but what we're hearing here in the New Age also, and let's tie that in also to the energies of perhaps this, not the super wave, but the Cygnus explosion star here coming up with these 3 days of light. And let's go back to you, Indy, on that.
Yeah, sure. So I do feel that the concept of the 144 was hijacked from the motherlands of Mu. Actually, most things biblically were hijacked from the motherlands of Mu. A lot of the stuff that came originally from the Nakal tablets, which were taken to Lemuria and were taken to Kudam Kumari and ultimately taken to the Rishis in India. And so a lot of this information has been basically salvaged there. But if you were to compare Genesis stories from the Nakal tablets from the motherlands of Mu, they would be basically inverted into what is actually biblically taught now. This is where a lot of the demonization of the serpent cults come forward. But I do feel this concept was hijacked from this. What I have seen through a lot of my studies is that the 144,000 hold the original templates to the divine being prior to the division of the sexes. Okay, so when we were in this androgynous unified state representing the perfected eternal human light body that holds the 144 harmonics. So this actually took place long before Lemuria, and the hijacking and the separation of the 144,000 actually happened in the timeline of Mu in the 2nd to the 3rd human seeding. So how I've kind of see it is it's the reassemble of the 48 DNA strands times 3. Like I said, the 144 star-pointed Merkaba. It could even represent 144 embodied soul groups with those extensions to the 12 tribal races, higher collective soul monadic extensions. This is also why the 144,000 can also be seen as the twin flames as well. So some people have said like, oh, the 144, the 144 are the twin flames. It's because they were split from that time of the division of the sexes because they hold the divided light template to the 144. But what I've come to see is that only a rehabilitated twin that holds the triplicity, the trinity wave, the triunal activation or completion of the spirit within can actually attain the encoding to the 144. So the union of the twin flame does not necessarily invoke the 144 mission, because twin contracts are not necessarily rooted in selfless missions. Most twin contracts are rooted still in clearing like lack and separation lessons to fully embody their soul. So not to say that a twin can't be a part of the 144, but essentially that they have to be in full selfless humanitarian efforts. And those twins have to be basically embarking on that selfless mission on the earth, geared towards building the light cities as their priority, because that ultimately is the mission of the 144, is to build the light cities through the time of judgment and through the time of tribulation, And they're the ones that are actually supposed to hold that template while everyone gets through that period.
Well, let's talk about that now. This activation of this particular group, we are moving into the age of Aquarius. And in order to build a new world, we have to see the old world fall apart. And we are seeing exactly that now, whether it's our political systems, religious systems, educational systems. All of these structures were born out of an old energy that is crumbling. So it is necessarily for that to be removed in order for us to build the new. Now, tie in this code here, because you're mentioning, or somebody was mentioning to me 2016 or a previous date where perhaps some of these 144, it was you, Julie, were starting to be activated. So let me bring you up, Julie. Let's talk about that, your experience with the number, and also you've pulled some Divine Feminine guidance cards on this as well. So share that with the audience, and then we'll get into this idea of how perhaps we can support this effort of building the new and letting go of the old here. But share your experience here first, Julie.
Yeah, so first of all, I was super excited when I learned we were going to do this 144 show, because I had some personal questions about it. And I researched as much as I could when it started. I started seeing those numbers in 2016. But back then, it was kind of hard to find information along that topic outside of religious content. So I'm super happy to have your input, Indy, today on that topic. So yeah, I in 2016, end of 2016, I started seeing 144, 41, 14, so like all combination using 1 and 4 many times a day. And I know I'm not the only one. I saw some people in the chat earlier say that too. Maybe like 20 or even 30 times a day, I would say. So, and enough to catch my attention that it wasn't a coincidence. It was really like spirit or my guides or whoever you want to call them trying to send me a message or get me on a specific track of curiosity. So and indeed, like I was looking at my my timeline today in a research for this show, and I looked at my astrological chart, and when it started happening, I had the nodes were like the North Node, to be exact, was conjunct my Virgo Sun exactly to the same degree. So Virgo Sun talks a lot about putting yourself in service to your mission. So Virgo is the sign of service. And I had the North Node, which is collective karma, which is going through towards my evolution, but in service to the collective. It was exactly on the same degree as my Virgo Sun. So I feel like I got activated for the first time, so to say, mission-wise, in 2016. And then it took me a year, and then I quit my job and I started to be self-employed, bought a laptop, decided to work from another country. So I really quit the matrix a year after that. So I started seeing those numbers again and again, and it kind of awakened something in me, like questions, and I started looking those numbers up, but I couldn't find anything really related to that. But now that you're talking, I'm like, yeah, it's very related to mission work, I feel. So I don't know if you
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. It's all about reclaiming the sovereignty of your universal core, of the triplicity solar energy, your universal tree of life. Awakening 12 strands of the DNA is the first, I guess, expansion of the phases of activating to the 144 mission. And then you go through rounds of tribal activations. Is what's happening is you're actually, because you are everything in the universe that's already existed. If you hold light inside yourself already at your core, you are already activated to this in one way or another, because that is what the 144,000 is holding that light. And so you go through multiple rounds of 12-strand DNA activations within those 12 tribal seedings, and you actually bring forth the entirety of all of the tribes that existed, because you hold all of those codes within you. And that's exactly what it's meant to do. It's completely meant to align into your soul mission, to walk in mission. And this is ultimately how you know that you are a part of the 144,000 is Do you know who you are? Do you remember your Akashic history? Do you know thyself? Do you remember your connections to those tribal seedings and those tribal lineages? Do you feel emotionally moved and motivated to get in alignment to your mission? And are you actually willing to sacrifice to get there? Are you willing to put aside your physical possessions to work solely for the light? Are you willing to embark into the unknown and basically lay everything on the line to stand for the greater good of the new earth? Because if you're willing to do those things wholeheartedly with holding nothing back, then that's kind of how you know where you stand with the 144.
And that's amazing. That's amazing you say that, because at the same time I had this alignment, this North Node conjunct my Sun. The South Node was conjuncting Neptune in the sky in my 7th house, and I had to let go of a lot of relationships. 7th house is related to relationships. Neptune is a planet of dissolution, letting go to reach higher consciousness. So like, it makes total sense what you're saying. I had to let go a lot of 3D stuff in order to move on with this mission. And I had to be committed, you know, exactly what you were saying, committed to being in service and fulfilling like what I was here to do. Yeah.
You move forward and you never look back. Absolutely. Julie, let's talk about that card you pulled from the Oracle deck in terms of building the light cities and how that ties in also to the conversation here today.
So I was asking about the 144 before we did the show, and I got an Oracle deck that I like from Rebecca Campbell. So I picked the Golden Children. So, and it was interesting because you kept talking about those golden cities, building the golden cities. And I feel like this card has to do with the new souls coming in, but also this new golden energy of building the new world. So I felt like it was very relevant.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Indigo, back to you. What are we missing here today in terms of the mission work? So we're tuning into that now. A lot of people are thinking that perhaps they're part of this initiative. They're perhaps part of this light. They've perhaps been activated. I see some people in the chat saying, oh, I've been seeing these numbers here since 2012, some more recently. What would you say here in terms of how to encourage them to get into and step into that alignment of their mission work, specifically now, and also talk about maybe the J-seal removal and how that also can maybe help people really remove all of the obstacles, the old programs, the overlays that are perhaps preventing them from stepping into said mission?
Right, sure. So with the J-seal removals, those are basically, you know, seals that were placed during the distortions of certain facets of the Anunnaki. Particularly one that holds people back in mission would be the crucifixion wounds, because that's what debilitates the collective 7th dimensional and 10th dimensional monadic shared soul structures. Basically, that's where those crucifixion wounds actually lie in the planetary field, hijacked in the dove grid. But essentially, that's what keeps you from achieving your noble desires in life. That's what keeps those victim-victimizer codes running in the energy field, in your body, in your cellular memory. In the miasma of the bodies. Actually, a lot of that trauma is stored in between the organic organs. So you're getting lots of organic transmissions. A lot of your seeding memories will actually come from your organs. They'll come from your womb, will come from, you know, your kidneys, your stomach. This is where you'll get a lot of the vision. In between that is the miasma, and that's where the trauma is actually held, is in this thin, you know, encasing between the organs. So, and also where a lot of the seal energy is held as well, in terms of the actual physical locations that they're located ethically, but also biologically in the body. Essentially, so yeah, getting your J-seal removed, even though it is a symbolic and, you know, it's a metaphysical clearing, it brings forth a lot of miraculous healing, because we really do focus on removing the crucifixion codes, the persecution codes, the stigmata wounds that really limit one from feeling like they can, you know, fully align to to gold, to neutrality, to the golden cities, to the new earth prophecy, align to the frequency of the new earth. So that way they can, what they're actually doing is they're pulling that frequency from the future and existing as it is now.
Right.
And that's what allows them to walk on new earth through tribulation while everyone else is being basically judged and isn't protected by, you know, by the universe, or by what the prophecy says, at least biblically. And I think that's what makes it hard to talk about as the 144, is you just don't know technically how much of that distortion we're carrying into the new age concepts of it. Whether some of these things are or aren't true in terms of, you know, like the 144 being virgins and only being pure and things like that.
Or the chosen ones. I heard a lot of like 144,000 chosen ones to help with this consciousness evolution. Maybe that's kind of in hijacking. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think we have to get it out of our heads, for one, that it's not limited to a specific 144,000. Well, if you look at like the majority of the human collective is of Anunnaki descent. Like, we all descended in one way or another through our genetics, through the 3 Abrahamic religions, which came from Abraham. Abraham was a priest of Enlil, you know, so it's all comes back to really clearing what happened through the Anunnaki hybridizations. And that's what happens as we have global restoration of that white ray, double diamond, liquid light that brings forth the expansion of the dove, brings forth the expansion of the swan, the light matrices that actually hold the templating for everybody to embody the 144 and embody the light energy that's meant to clear those hybridization traumas and all of the seals and implants that have extended from the Anunnaki and from the Draco systems as well.
Yeah. Wow, fascinating. Oh, hey guys, if you have any questions for either Julie or Indigo, please put them in the chat section now. Put them in high caps. It's going to be easier for me to pull up. While I wait for those to populate, let me ask you, Indigo, also, before the show, we were talking about this concept of visualizing the rising of our chrism oil in order to maybe bring a little bit more energy to the body, to bring more of this light connection to what's happening now. Can you share that with the audience a little bit? And Julie, after that, I'm going to ask you to maybe go through some of your questions in the email you sent me as well, and then we'll go and take some audience member questions following that. So Indigo, back to this visualization, and how can that help on top of the J-cell removals you just spoke about?
Yeah, so I just want to say thank you, Nancy. I appreciate it. And I know some other people left some comments as well that I didn't quite respond to, so thank you for everything that you guys said. But yes, so there is a visualization that I personally like to use and work on. It's called Taking Sacred Communion Within, and it's just a visualization of practicing the rising of your own sacred cerebral spinal fluid, your own sacred chrism, and basically anointing yourself with that fluid and decalcifying your pineal and integrating your own primal life force energy back into the body, which is a more pure, sacred, and sovereign way of taking communion versus the hijacked facets of that, which is actually drinking of the blood and the body of their own savior, or of Christ, right? Because it kind of takes taking communion into almost like a ritualized religious satanic worship. So there are visualizations that you can do to basically activate that energy, which really just focuses on the rising of your own Kundalini energy as that sacred prism, as that cerebral spinal fluid. But it also has to do with the pineal and the secretion of that as well, which I know you know more about, Jean-Claude.
Well, we could do a whole show on that and perhaps bring some of the Taoist point of view also and the Hindu point of view and all of this. We could do a whole show on that. But explain to the audience, maybe generally speaking, if they want to work on this themselves with a visualization technique, how would they go about doing that? Do you already have a video on your YouTube or on your Patreon? Or do you want to briefly explain it here to the audience members?
Yeah, sure. So I do have a video of it on my Patreon. So you can go to my patreon.com/Indigo Angel, and you'll probably have to scroll back a ways to find that video because it is kind of one of the first ones that I put up on my Patreon. But simply, I could just run through it if you guys want to do it.
Sure. Do you guys want to do a quick visualization technique? Sure, let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So patreon.com/Indigo Angel. Folks, let me bring that into the live chat as well. And these links are also in the description box below. So go ahead and wait a second. Why don't we finish on that, Indigo? Let's do a few questions and we'll finish with the visualization today. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. Julie, so back to you first. I'm looking in the chat for some questions. Do you want to start maybe with the Fleur-de-Lis, seeing as you're from Montreal, Quebec?
Sure, let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I watched your latest video, Indy, and you were talking about the Fleur-de-Lis, the symbol of France, and also that's on the flag of Quebec. And what's funny is that I've been wondering for a long time why I was born in Montreal, Quebec. And I'm half French. My dad is from France. My mom is from Quebec. Both of those places have a Fleur-de-Lis as a symbol. So, and I know you were talking about the relationship between the Fleur-de-Lis and the divine feminine, right? So it really like struck a chord when you were talking about it, because it kind of explained a little bit why maybe I was born here with that sort of DNA. So I don't know if you can explain a little bit more the Fleur-de-Lis symbol.
Yeah. Well, I don't know everything there is to know about this symbol. Some of the things I speak to are also intuitive and psychically seen. And so when I had seen Medusa's head, that it was there underneath the Vatican, I also seen it came with the symbol of the Fleur-de-Lis. And so I kind of started diving more into it. And it was a representation of the Virgin Mary as well. And also takes us back to the Isis temples and also back to the Mary Magdalene bloodline. So what I've just seen psychically and intuitively is that this symbol code is an activation code that brings forth this energy and the activation of this energy, essentially.
Do you think Canada has something to do with the divine feminine energy of the Fleur-de-Lis? Do you think there's a link here?
Well, yeah, I do, because if you actually look into some of Asha Nadine's work, yeah, we'll go back to that. But there is a map that she has where the Michael and Mary turnstiles are actually located just in Canada. So it's all along that flanking coastal area where the trucker convoy is running. Actually, is that there's these smaller vortexual sites that are supposed to run the energetic encoding to the Virgin Mary.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I do think that there's a lot of connection and symbolism that's connecting those energetically. Yeah.
Wow.
Really? Is that in the Voyager series, or where else can we pick that up? What you just mentioned about Asha Nadine?
That would be on the map. So ourhighest.com, I believe, is her website, and you can purchase that map there. But yeah, I'm not allowed to actually show that map because I don't have copyright permissions to it, but I do like to reference it. Yeah.
Right. I'll see if I can bring it up for the audience to check during the show here.
And I have another question. Back to the 144,000. And Indy, you were talking about this sort of DNA strand before it was divided into polarity. Is that gender polarity? And I was wondering if there is a link with this 222 portal, because in numerology, 222 is talking a lot about polarity. It's talking about also union of the divine feminine and also divine masculine. So do you think the 222 portal is going to activate even more that 144,000 strand?
Yes, absolutely. Because the 222 really is a representation of the higher humanitarian codes that surge through the grids. It comes through the solar sun of Venus. So Venus has a sun, the core of the solar sun core of Venus brings through the 222 codes much more stronger through the white ray and through the double diamond So it adds that double diamond liquid illumination in the Earth's light matrix system to amplify that structure within the Earth's template, because everything's coming from the Earth's grids first. And that's running the entire grid structure for us to experience that, to have those activations internally. But yeah, absolutely. I think that the 222 codes is doing so much on so many multiple levels. It's opening up portals to the 7 higher harmonic universes, which is why we have so many simultaneous light matrices and light grids actually running to fulfill this prophecy, going from the 4 pillars of man, Lemurian templates, which is the base template that begins in Easter Islands and actually extends to New Zealand, Kauai, Hawaii, and really all over the globe, even through Giza, and then goes into the dove template, and then goes into the swan, which is full illumination and expansion of the 222 codes running through the white ray, running through the double diamond liquid light that comes up through those dark spaces and dark trenches of the earth. And so, yeah, there's so much that happens within that expansion. It's bringing forth, it's clearing the Sophianic templates. It's clearing the Black Madonna templates. It's clearing the King Arthur and the White Dragon lineages. It's rectifying the divine masculine and solar king templates here on the earth. It is bringing forth guardianship, those who are stepping into parental roles on the earth, those who are basically, that's what that guardianship represents. That represents mission. That represents the base foundation to the 144,000. And therefore, as more people, embody that and step into that, that is all a part of the energetic accumulation through the astrological alignments, through the that are going to basically shift those selenite pylon rods that are holding the hijacking of the dove. The dove's release means everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. Okay, there's wow there. Folks, I recommend you watch this show over again. There's a lot of information in one show to digest. Candace is asking, will the DNA Alteration injectable, say it that way here on YouTube, interfere or obstruct with what's to come regarding either the DNA strands or the activations of the 144? Is that perhaps one of the strategies that was also being used here in a tactic to slow down or even to repress these changes that are upon us?
Yes, absolutely. That is something I'm still decoding myself. I have dived into the parasitic aspect of it, the alteration of the genetics, bringing them into the Cthulhu cults and more of a draconic lineages. What I think they're trying to do is inject their own genetic DNA composition to bring people into that electronically controlled hive, bring people into the fallen grid systems, bring people into the artificial intelligence singularity vortexes that are running, bring people into the fallen dragon grids, basically, that are running off of the Metatronic encoding, that are running off of the Yahweh, the Eltion, the Azazel, the Enoch, basically the systems that are holding the control matrices in place. And so, yes, all of that is still simultaneously existing, but even if you took the Jimmy jab, if light, this type of light that we're talking about that's coming through this Cygnus supernova blast wave, this integration 2022, if we really have those 3 days of light, that's going to obliterate everything. And no, it's not going to matter. It actually won't matter. Yeah.
And if I can add something to that, while I was doing some research for the 222 for today, I picked a card, an oracle card, and I got this one. I'm trying to show it here. It says true freedom. It says freedom to live your life exactly as your soul chose to. So I thought it was super relevant with what Indy was saying about this liberation. Just wanted to add to that.
That's interesting.
Exactly it.
Yeah. It's also interesting how you were pulling astrology in the last couple of months, Julie, and you were forecasting this recent power grab here in Canada, the martial law and all that. What else can you tell us about 2022 and how perhaps all that is going to flip on its head if you consider the Wheel of Fortune card in Tarot? What can you say to the audience here regarding the next couple of months and the development of 2022 itself?
Yeah, well, one of the things I don't think I have really spoken about that yet, but one of the alignments, astrologically speaking, that I really like about this year is that starting in June, July, we're going to have the planet Uranus link with the North Node, so Rahu for the Vedic astrologers out there. So North Node and Uranus are going to move really close to each other for the whole rest of the year. So Uranus is talking about liberation, being sovereign, going towards more change, going towards your evolution as a collective. And North Node means also kind of the same thing. So going towards our collective evolution. It also talks about enlightenment. Uranus talks about consciousness, having access to more consciousness. So it feels like it's going to speed up a lot as soon as we hit maybe June, July, while Uranus and North Node are going to be like locking together and moving really close by for the whole rest of the year. So I feel like right now we might be in this transition phase while everything is like moving and the old system is collapsing, and as soon as we hit this summer, I feel like everything is going to be speeding up like 10 times, and we're going to move into this new world altogether. So I feel, and I know Andy was talking about this shockwave of light, I believe, from January and July. So I checked up a little bit of the alignments, and also right at the beginning of this year, end of last year, on December 29 of 2021, we had Jupiter move into the sign of Pisces, which is kind of a big deal because Jupiter highlights what we're going to value as a collective. And in the sign of Pisces, it's like this reversal of values. We're focusing more on everything that's more spiritual and visible rather than the old material world. So there's like a big shift in the energy, right? If you look at the astrology of it, as Jupiter moved into Pisces. So that's the whole beginning of 2022. And then in April 12, we have this conjunction Jupiter with Neptune. So even more spiritual energy. And it's like written in the stars that we're kind of evolving consciousness-wise, but also our frequencies. So I feel like we're in this big spiritual transition where we stop valuing all the material stuff that kept us linked to this old matrix of control, and we're moving towards valuing our inner life, our spirituality, the work that we have to do. The healing is also a very big Pisces theme. And for this big transition, Uranus and North Node, that's going to move us very fast towards our evolution.
Wow, very good, very profound. Anything you want to add to that, Indy?
I definitely agree with what she just said, and we're definitely moving in the right direction for 2022. You can definitely see this global expansion of the freedom codes. I mean, because that freedom convoy has gone from Canada to Australia to the UK now, even parts of the US and things like this. So
Israel also in the last couple of days, yeah.
So you can see the movement, and you can see the light activating in one another. And I think that's what we have to remember, is that we co-create this reality together. And so it's our responsibility, especially those of us who feel that we're a part of the 144, that we remember to awaken that light in each other, because it's there at our core.
Yeah, very
and
good.
that's really what we are.
David is asking here, perhaps the last question for the audience, and then we'll start to wrap up. JC, please clarify when we're supposed to have these 3 consecutive days of light. What are the dates, or at least what is being expected here? Not that we're guaranteeing the dates, but what do you have to respond to this, Indigo?
That is unknown. These are predictions. These are speculative dates that potentially could happen up to any point up until July 2022, and even into the future, maybe a year. Maybe we're behind on the prediction of that as well. But according to some of the people I've listened to, like Alex Collier and things like that, hopefully by July 2022, that we will be able to at least see the Cygnus implosion that's going to take place in Alpha Cygnus.
Wow. Okay. Fascinating. So Indigo, let me start with you here to start ending the show. We talked about your Patreon here. Explain to the audience members how they can join you in perhaps some group meditations, group visualizations. What do you have there? Which package to look for? And then also let's talk about your website and the special discount code you have for the Beyond Mystic audience.
Yeah. So I offer group grid sessions once a month. You can find that on my Patreon. You can get into those group grid sessions by just signing up for the lowest tier, so the 1111 tier. If you want to have a starseed origin reading, you would do the next tier up. And then if you want to have the one-on-one monthly sessions with me to do interactive type of work, that is the 44 tier, but these are on Canadian
prices here, but yeah,
Canadian
44.
But yeah, so we get together once a month as a group and we work on the grids. We go in collectively and we do remote viewing, we do sound healing. We go intuitively to certain areas, certain sacred sites, certain vortexes. Last time we worked on releasing the dove, we primarily spent a lot of time in Giza and Niagara Falls as well, which seemed to be a mediary portal to the heavens, to the 7 higher harmonic universes. And we also went down to Easter Islands. We did work with the 4 pillars of man templates down there. And so, yeah, we just come together collectively and we move through the grids and we actually do the work, you know? So yeah, it's
cool.
a lot. It's amazing.
And before you decide, folks, you can go to Indigo Angel's YouTube channel here and you can see some of the video snippets of all of these activations and ceremonies as well. I've interviewed Indigo quite a few times here across the planet. There was a Serpent Mound episode, which was very interesting. Heliopolis in Egypt, of course. And where's the Mayan portal? This one is a fabulous episode as well. So do go and check that out. And Indigo, for the people here who might want to do a JCL removal or perhaps engage in the package here for the Beyond Mystic audience, explain to them what's in store for them with this Beyond Mystic code.
Yeah, so with the Beyond Mystic code, they would get 10% off of the package. Comes with a starseed origin reading, and then also a one-on-one to go over that reading, and then also a J-seal removal. If they would like to do a J-seal removal, I always give the option for 3 different sessions. So they can either do a deep chakra clearing, a J-seal removal, or a Draco seal removal. And I also include the PDF of my book, How to Read Celestial Starseed Akashic Origins, that provides a methodology to determining your starseed origins. And so that comes with the package. And if you don't know if you want what you want in terms of your interactive session for healing or clearing or implant removal, we can always discuss that when we come together to discuss your reading.
Okay, very good. So folks, that's at indigoangel.com, and I have the link to that specific product and the discount code here in the description box below. And for those of you who want to connect with Julie here and get their personalized birth chart produced so that they can follow even more here on all of this amazing astrological content that she is providing both on her channel and here on Beyond Mystic, you can do that at maisonjupiter.com. And Julie, talk about les cartes du ciel, or the birth charts here, what to expect, and also about the tarot readings with your sister on the website here. How are the bookings going, and what can people expect with those?
Yeah, so first for the birth charts, I do them manually with an astrology software, and then I transform them into a nice print, the color of your choice, so you can print it and frame it at home. And also it's going to be very important for you to follow along all the astrology updates that we do, so you can look which house in your birth chart is going to be activated. So it's a digital product, and it doesn't come with an astrology reading. Some people are mistaken sometimes. But if you would like a personal reading, you can book with my lovely sister, Sophie. She does tarot, and she is very good, because every time I have big existential questions, I rely on Sophie, and she's the best. So there's a couple spots open. I think it's April. There might be some spots in March left. So let's see.
Okay, very good. And folks, there as well, if you use the code Beyond Mystic, you'll get another 10% off of either of those two products. And speaking of the astrology and your finance, this was a big theme, of course, during the show here today about moving away from this extraction matrix. You can check out our last Astro Move Finance here with both Janine and Julie, where we bring in the tarot and the astrology together in this 12-sign personal reading for you guys here. So here again, if you use the code SAVE 23 or SAVE 33, where'd it go? At any rate, it's SAVE 33 is the coupon code on both of these episodes right now, which is available to you guys. I think that's it for today, guys. Please do join us in a couple of weeks here. We have the Divine Feminine Oracles coming back on the show, so please do go check out our upcoming live streams here on Beyond Mystic. And in the meantime, I'd like to encourage you to like, share, and subscribe here at Maison Jupiter on YouTube, and also here at Indigo Angel here on YouTube. This was Decoding the 144,000 in Revelation with Julie and Indigo Angel. I'm Jean-Claude Beyond Mystic. I love you guys, and we'll see you soon. Au revoir.
Bye.
Au revoir.